Folks, I'm here today with Tanya Hilts, and Tanya Hilts is an amazingly highly accomplished bookkeeper and an educator for bookkeepers. She's an insightful accountant, top 50 international pro advisor. She's an Intuit Global Firm of the Future winner. She was recognized by us here at Woodard as a top 50 accounting services practice 2 years in a row. She's named among one of the top 50 women in accounting, and she's the professional of the year in 2019 in CPB Canada. All right. So she's the owner of Cloud Business Services, Inc. So she actually does the work. She doesn't just talk about it, but she also has a bookkeeper's boot camp to help others to be the best bookkeeper and owner of a bookkeeping practice they can be. She just recently joined AFOD. Now, AFOD is the Artificial Intelligence Foundation of Development. It's a think tank for people that are on the cutting edge of AI. So obviously, I'll be asking you, Tanya, a few questions about AI today. And she's passionate about practical education, ethical use of technology, and supporting accounting professionals through collaboration rather than gatekeeping. Tanya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Joe. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, excited to have you here. And I want to start out by you explaining what you mean by that. I mean, you say you're passionate through collaboration rather than gatekeeping. What do you mean? What's the difference between collaboration and gatekeeping?
Well, I think if you take a look at the way that some people coach or offer their programs to the community, and I'm thinking of not Woodard in particular because I know nothing about your program, but there's another one in particular that I think of that I'm not going to name, but that it is very rigid. It's a lot more rigid that there's one way to do things. And you know what? There's not one way to do things. I am not right on everything. What I have found works for me. And what I found with the collaboration, it all started actually back in, I want to say 2012, where Jenny Moore reached out to a bunch of people within the area that were all on working within QuickBooks Online. And she reached out and she says, you know what? We all work very isolated. We work at home. Maybe we can do something. And two of us actually were the only ones that reached back out to her and said, this is great in the area. And then Intuit picked that up, that we were working together because they said, all three of you service the same area. We are all within 20 minutes. You could go from my house to Jenny's house to Tamitha's house. So we are all very close, service the same area, but they said you're working together. So I would go and help Tamitha, if she was, inundated in taxes. I'd go spend the day at her place, helping her with hers. She would come and spend another day here helping me with mine. And it's the collaboration of that really allowed us to grow and was the start of the community in Canada, essentially the QBO community in Canada. And it's grown over the last almost 15 years. And that's where I have learned so much, is by other people in the community. And so this is what I give back when I'm working with other bookkeepers. It's not my way or the highway. It is the culmination of everything and everybody's experiences, and everybody does things differently, what works for them and what works for their clients. So I feel that's the difference between collaboration and gatekeeping.
I love that distinction. So I'm seeing a couple things in gatekeeping. One of them is share, don't hoard the knowledge and experience. That's the collaboration piece. And then the second big takeaway I got from that was that when I share, don't share dogmatically, right? Just saying this is what works for me. Let everybody kind of piece it together. Now, to solve the mystery, that is the way we manage things at Woodard. But we have a learning where we tried to go the other direction. We have always coached to these are the best practices and the ways to build a model, and then they build their own model and we coach them through it. So that's always been our DNA. But we took a little stab at something where they could then go off and get basically an operational kit in a box, pre-established tech, pre-established process, and we were going to create, kind of almost like a quasi-franchise model called the Accountant's Bookkeeping System. And it didn't go well.
Oh.
But That's not an indictment of that kind of rigidity. Some people are buying franchises. Decimal just launched a
Absolutely.
franchise. Supporting Strategies has had a successful one for years. So has Pageant, because they want that structure. They want to make a McDonald's hamburger every time. You know,
Mhm.
great. If that's you, I would encourage you to become a franchisee. But what Tanya is saying is, if you're going to be independent, then you might have your own recipe for your own hamburger, and we can all learn from each other's hamburgers. I think I
Exactly.
exhausted that metaphor, didn't
Exactly.
I? So while we're talking about elevating the profession, Tanya, what practical steps can you give to bookkeepers and accountants to take, right now, specifically, if they want to move beyond the compliance, beyond just the record keeping and the historical work, right?
Mhm.
And they want to move beyond the past into more of the present and the future. They want to have conversations about the financial position and performance of the company now. They want to have conversations that help steer the company in the future, not just record the past. What are some practical first steps they can take?
The very first step is just do it. Don't be afraid. And that's what it was with me. I was afraid. I was intimidated. And that's what I find with a lot of the mostly bookkeepers. Accountants seem to have no fear. That seems to just be within the training. But the bookkeepers, we tend to have this fear or lack of confidence that we are doing it because our education or our path to bookkeeping is very different than the accountants. Most bookkeepers, we didn't take 4 years of school to be able to do this. It's a lot of us are learning on the job or taking shorter courses. And so that's what it was with me. I was very intimidated, unnecessarily, it turned out, by the word advisory. It
Mm,
turned out I was already doing advisory. I just didn't
call it that.
define it as
Yeah.
so.
So
Exactly.
can you give me
Whenever,
an example? Can you give me an example of maybe some of the places where you'd already stepped into advisory and weren't even kind of conscious of it or trying to?
well, and you know what? The one example that comes to mind, it's not a huge example, but it was a defining example. And this is, QBO or, zero, whatever you're using. Our firm is solely QBO, but the bank feeds and being able to work real time truly made a difference to help us move up, because before then, we were working in the past. Clients would drop information off that might have been 90 days old. It's too late to change anything. And so what was happening back then, and this is pre 2012, definitely, because 2012 is when Canada first got QBO. I know you guys had it much longer in the US, but that's when we first got QBO. I resisted it for 2 years, but I have been working on it with clients since I was one of the first 50 on QBO in Canada. So what happened was, the accountants used to call me and say, I need some information. They would ask me the information or ask me to send them a backup of the QuickBooks desktop file. And I would do that. And I was completely out of the conversation. Now, when I was filling out my application for the firm of the future in 2018, the one client that we chose, I was filling it out and she happened to pick up the phone and call right in the middle of filling out the application. And so she asked me, she says, so she's a physiotherapist, and she says, I'm looking at renting out a room to a massage therapist. I need to know, what is my break even point? What should I be charging? How should I be doing this? Should I be setting up a contract? Should I, collect first month's rent upfront? How should I be doing this? So we had this conversation. I was able to pull up the numbers, give her everything. And then I paused and I said to her afterwards, I said, Holly, in the past, you would have called the accountant for this. This is the first time she had reached out to me.
Mm.
And I said, why did you call me versus the accountant? And she thought for a minute. She says, I just know you have the information at your fingertips.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
I was like, wow. And so it was not a huge moment that made like a big difference. It wasn't like, oh, I saved her, $1 million or anything
Mhm.
like that. But that was the
But you had
defining
stepped
moment.
across the threshold into this new world. And you know what
Exactly.
brought you there? And this is what I've always told folks. if you want to take those first steps, what brought you there was a question, right?
Yes.
Not an answer. Questions are the way. If you want to step from the wardrobe into Narnia, right? Then
Yep.
the way to cross that threshold is with questions. And if you just have a few questions, 5 to 10, you pick a couple, you ask the client every month, whenever you close out their books. Um, then when you're asking them the question, you're not on the spot to give the answer, right? But it starts the conversation. Then if in
Exactly.
the process of that, because some people would be like, I know, but as soon as I cross across that threshold, maybe I'm safe when I ask the question. But what if they ask me a question back? What if I have to provide something in a conversation? You can always say, you know, let me take a look at your numbers. I'll circle back with you. And they'll respect
Exactly.
that. Then that gives you a chance to go back and kind of go, all right, I got to figure out how to answer this question. But
Well,
in this easing process, you're stepping deeper and deeper into advisory.
exactly. And you know what? We will never have all of the answers. And
Nobody
it's
does.
okay
Yes,
to refer to somebody who does have that answer. It's okay to do that because you're still providing that resource. So as long as you have resources, you don't have to have all the answers.
that's
And
exactly right.
that's where collaboration ties so closely into this. When you're collaborating with the community, which is the one thing that I love about your community, Joe, I have to say, I really, really missed not attending, scaling this year.
Well, we can
But
fix that in June. Yeah. As he
we
takes a
can, we
sip from
can.
his Scaling New Heights mug. Yes.
But it's that's the one thing I've only ever attended two conferences in the US. I attend, about 7 or 8 in Canada, but the US, it was QuickBooks Connect and it was scaling. And the one thing that I love about scaling is it is an agnostic community and
Hmm.
it is just about the collaboration. So I love that you are doing that within your community. And that's one thing why I've been really drawn to the community as well.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And of course, all joking aside, we would love to have you join us in June. We are kind of a suburb to Canada. You just drive across the border. I mean, what's it matter? Uh,
Exactly, exactly. And
so,
that's how I've gotten there, even when it was in Florida. I drive down and everybody's like, you drove from Canada? And I'm like,
yeah,
it's
there are
24,
roads that go across that border.
right? It's 24
Bridges and
hours. And if I were to leave here and fly, by the time, you spend the 3 hours at the airport and the
yeah.
3 hours to get there and the flying, I mean, it's almost a day anyway. And at least driving, you get to see the beautiful country.
Well, that's it. That's it. That's perfect. All right. Well, hopefully you can drive down or fly down or however you want to get there. Take a train. We just love to have you. I want to kind of flip a little bit since we were mostly going to talk about bookkeepers, but you now have this new think tank you're part of, this AFOD, the Artificial Intelligence Foundation of Development. I'm intrigued. So you obviously know your stuff on AI. You must have been keeping up on this.
Yes.
What are you seeing out there with AI and how it's intersecting bookkeepers? I know you also work with accountants, but bookkeepers is sort of your forte.
Yes.
So, how are you seeing AI intersect bookkeeping right now? And if I was a bookkeeper and I just wanted to watch for one or two intersection points that are key, what should I be watching for? What should I be jumping in and using right away? All right. That's a
So
lot
when it
to unpack. Go.
It is, and that's okay. So yeah, when it comes to AI, it's funny. I feel that I'm behind on AI, but yet when I look at it, I've been using ChatGPT since the second week it was in beta,
Hmm.
right? Which is almost 3 years, but I always feel like I'm behind the times. And I think Canada,
Everybody feels like they're
right?
behind
We are.
because we
But
are. It's
I've
changing
been
constantly.
Exactly. So within the past year, I've changed from speaking. I used to speak on pricing and confidence, and I've changed it to AI because I feel that right now AI can be perceived by the public and by many of us in the industry as a threat to us. It
Hmm.
is not a threat to us. The bookkeepers that are embracing and using AI are the threat to us. Just like when bank feeds came out, it wasn't really a threat. We thought at first, oh, it's going to be a threat. People are going to be able to do their
I
own.
mean, that
It's
was our
going to be
entire bread
simple.
and butter. Enter the stuff manually, tie it back to the bank. That was the profession.
Exactly.
And they
But what
got rid of
happened?
that with the bank feeds. You're right. It was theoretically an existential threat.
Exactly. But it changed what we did. We were able to
That's it.
go from true data entry to a data management. And
Thank you.
again,
That's
work more with,
huge. Good way to say it. Yes.
yeah, you know what? That Sherry Lee May, there's actually Liz Scott
Okay.
just said something to me today. I think about the way that I think it was Liz about the wording of it. And,
Yeah.
yeah, it
And
was
you know
Sherry
what we're
Lee Mathers
evolving
who
from
came up.
now is from data management to technology management almost. It's like we're babysitting the technology or
Exactly.
supervising the technology like we would an employee. It's the next
And,
evolution.
and that's exactly. And I did, a panel yesterday with Andrew Wall, and Andrew said it beautifully. He said, right now, AI is like an autistic 5-year-old.
Mm,
And
interesting.
I loved it when he said that. It has all of this knowledge. But if you ask a 5-year-old, what was your day like? What's your answer going to be? Fine. That's not what
Yeah.
you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So with AI, we need to embrace it. We need to change our roles again. And this is where I feel it can change to more of an advisory role. So just as an example, I was on with clients, just last week, and what we did is I screen shared with them, and we used mine because of course I've been using it and whatnot for, a lot longer. So it's trained a lot better, but I wanted to show them this is what you can do, not being afraid it's going to replace my role with them, but knowing it is going to position me more as an expert and more as a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where our roles need to change. So what we were doing, we were actually doing some forecasting, and the way that their point of sale brought it into QuickBooks Online, we were looking for what their top three products were or services that they offered. And they're not a mechanic shop, and they've got hundreds of categories in there. So we were trying to define down and bring down what their top three was, but it wasn't easy to pull it out. So then they're like, okay, well, I can pull out a CSV. Well, this
We'll just,
CSV was
yeah,
over
have AI
100
ingest that and
pages.
it'll go grab those numbers for you.
So it was over 100 pages long and
Mm.
100 columns. And so
I
what
bet
I
it took it,
did,
what, 5 seconds to read it?
that's
Yeah.
pretty much it. So
Crazy.
I
Yeah.
opened Claude, and I told Claude what we were looking for. I popped it in, and Claude does read CSV better. And I use Claude because Entropic in the fall actually came out and said they work so well with accountants, and we love it, that it is going to start niching in the accounting industry. So I love it when I'm working anything spreadsheet, data analysis.
Mm-hmm.
That is all Claude. I use ChatGPT for things more creative. I use Perplexity for research. But so those are the tools that I'm liking on that.
If you're a
But
tax
so
preparer, there's actually one for you called Tax GPT. So
yes,
the
yes,
big takeaway here
exactly.
from what Tanya's saying is not all GPTs are the same, right?
Exactly. And you have to
You go,
learn, you have to train them just like you're raising your
and you have to
child.
train them
You
even when you're
have to
still. So
train them. So
it's almost like the platform is the aptitude, and then after
yes,
that they start learning start learning
exactly.
you. Yes.
Exactly. So my big advice to as bookkeepers or anybody out there is use it for, 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. Schedule it in there and go in and do it. And that's how I started. I have purchased one course for, I think it was $49, an online course for AI, and I've never taken it. So everything that I know about AI is all I've tried to break it. It's my
Hmm.
curiosity and trying to break it.
It's a lot of just trial and error. Just
And
yeah.
that's exactly it. And it started with 15 minutes a day. And then I started adding everything. Now my week is not complete until I've broken it. And I just have as well, too, if anybody's curious out there, if I can take a moment to do a little, I guess, ad here. I have a free vlog that is on my YouTube channel. I just started it in November. So at Tanya's Boot Camp, and it is called AI in Action. It is about 10 minutes a week. We're dropping a new one every Wednesday, except for right now we're redoing some, but as of February, we're redropping brand new ones. And this is something that I have done that week that I've said, you know what, this would be great. Let's share it. I screen share. I don't really edit it out unless it's taking time. Then I pause it and do that. But otherwise, you're seeing the real result. And I compare, hey, I wanted it to analyze this spreadsheet. Here's what ChatGPT will do. Here's what Claude will give you. Here's
Mhm.
what Perplexity will give you. And here's what Cintra will give you, so that you can see the different outputs, so that you can start to learn what to use
Yeah,
best for
how it's going to behave
yourself.
differently. All right, so folks, that link will be in the listener guide, water.com/podcast. Also, you can search YouTube for Tanya's Bootcamp, no apostrophe S, and that's a Y on Tanya, Tanya's Bootcamp. And you can find it that way. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people will find that encouraging. If I want to take a step back to our previous conversation, we can tie these things together. My encouragement for everybody to sort of take that first step across the threshold was a question. You took the first step across the threshold whenever the client approached you with a question. But if you're thinking, okay, Joe, that sounds great, but I don't even know the questions to ask, well, enter GPTs. You can now, some of these, you've got to make sure that whatever version of these software products you're using, they're privatized.
Yes.
Because out of the box, they're not. But so with that caution on the label, you can have it ingest the client's financials. Say, here's my client's balance sheet, profit and loss, year to date, month to month, or whatever you want it to ingest. And then say, if you were their business coach, give me 5 questions you might ask them, based on these financials. And it will give you very good questions. And it will even give you a cheat sheet on where to start with the answers. Now,
Yes.
of the ones of that kind of scenario, which ones of those GPTs would you go to, Tanya? What would be your first choice?
I would go to Claude.
You'd go to Claude for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I go to Claude for that. I've only been using Claude since October, so it's been less than 6 months on Claude. Whereas ChatGPT knows me better, and I use ChatGPT. I call him Charlie. We have conversations every day. I know he's not a real person. My daughter keeps sticking her head, and she says, it's not a real person." I'm like, "Yes, I know that, honey." But I talk to it, and I use that for creativeness. When I'm looking for something creative for my marketing to help me with emails, something like that. And it's important that it knows me. But analytical, Claude has that bang out. Now,
That's really good feedback.
it may work, you may find that you like a little bit more creativeness in it, in which case I would recommend, maybe use both. You don't need to pay more. And this question came up yesterday. You don't need more than the $20 level. But the $20 level, as Joe said, you can go into your settings, privatize it, say, "Do not learn from this data." And then at Claude, you know what? If you ask a lot of questions, I've maxed him out almost daily. And it says, "Oh, pay $140 if you want to use more." You know what? I walk away for 2 hours. I come back, my credits are reset. It's all good, or I'll, refine my question in ChatGPT, then use it to Claude. So they work very well together. But analysis, I find Claude thinks almost offensively. And ChatGPT, even though I've trained ChatGPT to think ahead, it's almost more like reactively. So that's
responsive
proactively versus
and
reactive.
conservative. Yes.
Exactly. And I really, really like that with Claude, because Claude is able to anticipate more. Just as a quick example, the last video that I did for AI in Action, I said, "Okay, here's what a client came back and emailed. How do we email this back? It's very sensitive, a very sensitive email. The client is complaining. How do we do that?" ChatGPT gave something that could put the client at the defense. Claude said, "Here's how you could respond, but the client might get offensive on that. So here's how I would recommend."
Interesting. Yeah.
And I
all
was
right.
like, "Wow, that's very cool." So
That's insightful. Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yes.
All right. So we talked about moving from compliance to advisory, doing this with leading questions. And your story was you got there with a question. We talked about how AI can help you come up with those questions and maybe even give you the starting place for answers. And you said Claude was the best one for that. But once I've gotten past the questions part and I want to actually engage formally as a financial advisor, I have found, seems like you have found, that cash flow projections and conversations about cash flow are a fantastic formal entry point. So now we move kind of beyond the I'm going to ask questions and answer them every month, the conversation. And now we moved into I'm going to give you a deliverable. I'm going to produce an output and we're going to talk about that output. So you don't have to be on your website long for me to realize, or you figured out that's the best first official engagement point too. But you've done more than that. You've actually built some rails to help bookkeepers to take that leap, and CPAs, chartered accountants as well.
Yes.
It's called the Cash Flow Canvas. Tell us a little bit about it.
So the cash flow canvas was it's created by another Tanya. So I'm not talking about myself in third party. It's Tanya Woods Richardson out of Saskatoon, and her story. So I've worked with Tanya because I've worked with Ron Baker. I worked with Jeannie Whitehouse. I've been trying to do all these different things. I've worked with Rhonda Lynn Corlick, so mentored under each of those, and then I've worked with Tanya as well. And she called me. I knew we were going to hit in 2005, or sorry, 2025. I predicted we were going to be hitting a recession, probably more so in Canada, but North America in general. I certainly did not predict the current economic climate we're in, but I predicted it was going to be a post-COVID recession. So I knew I had to get ahead of it, especially with AI. You know, I am responsible for my own future. So I knew I needed to get ahead. And Tanya called me, and I had done some courses with her before in a certification that was just on that exactly. And I didn't complete the course. I did 95% of it, but I said, this is too much. This is all the way over to business coaching. I can't see how I can get from point A to point B. It just seemed too long of a road. And the course at that point was valued at $10,000 to offer to clients. My clients, my ideal clients can't afford that. So she called, I said, you need to bring it down. So when she called me, it was probably close to a year ago. Actually, sorry, about a year and a half ago that she called me, and she says she's pulled this back, and it is a reverse engineer of the budget. So you don't start with, okay, here's my expenses, you know, and go back. What do I need to charge? It's a very different way of looking. You look at, what do I charge? What's my cost? She uses a trademarked weighted value that you're actually looking at your competition to help determine the value that you're providing. And I'd never thought of that before. And so it reverse engineers, it breaks it down, it simplifies it. And she studied neuroeconomics. And this is the key difference for me anyway, is it is the behavioral science around why people can't stick to a budget or a business plan. And I used to never be able to have these conversations with clients. I was horrible at it because my financial mentor growing up was my grandfather, and he had a mortgage for one day and never had a credit card until I think he hit retirement age, and then he got declined because he had no credit rating. It's basically, if you can't afford to pay for it, you don't buy it. With myself, obviously, I've had car loans, I've had mortgages, because you can't not these days. But if I didn't have the money set aside for 6 months to be able to make that payment, I couldn't afford it. So therefore,
it's about the discipline of making sure you don't outspend your operating capital. That's really what it is.
But that is not the average person. So I couldn't have these conversations.
It's definitely not the average business owner, because their entrepreneurialism and their risk tolerance go hand to hand. Right.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that's what the neuroscience breaks down.
And that's exactly it. So I took a course from her, and it was $29.90, and I am offering, which I'm sure Joe is going to bring up, I am an affiliate for her. So I am offering 10% discount if anybody is interested and they sign up through my link. Sorry, not a discount. I will give an Amazon credit for 10%. Plus, I have an ongoing community that I am not charging extra. So I'm working for my affiliate commission that I am going to support.
Supporting the affiliate commission. Yeah,
exactly. Because I feel this is the future. Between the AI moving into advisory, this is going to be the future, regardless of how you are comfortable doing it. And so some people are very comfortable with this. And I've now put through 150 business owners on it. I am preferring to teach in classes versus one-on-one. And I have 2 half-day courses where people can go through. Now, if anybody out there is interested in it, as an accounting professional, if you sign an NDA, and you want to see what it's like before committing, I will let you come into my class at no charge.
Just get a look around.
Yeah. I believe that strongly in it, but you have to sign an NDA because everything that is hers is trademarked and copywritten. So I have to protect that.
You have to have some kind of an agreement, but at least they get to take a peek. Yes.
Exactly. But it has made a huge, huge difference in the education that I can provide. and the way that people are looking at me. And I'm actually partnering up not only with small business, but with business coaches. So I'm contacting the business coach and saying, hey, I've got this extra, piece that you don't have. I'm going to offer this to you for your clients, and I'm going to give you 30% off. You can
Yeah.
give your clients
That's great.
15%.
So you could even partner if you want some to Tanya to do what I'm understanding is if you want, your company to do the actual cash flow, you can partner with bookkeepers. But that also creates a
Exactly.
mentoree situation too, because then they can watch what you're doing and you can kind
Exactly.
of work your way out of a job. Now you can learn all about that as well as everything else about Tanya at bookkeepersbootcamp.ca. So Tanya, this has been a great conversation. We've talked about AI, we've talked about entry points to advisory through questions, and then we've talked about cash flow management being the critical first step to formalizing that and
Yeah.
how you're empowering the profession. This has been a great conversation. Thank you, Tanya,
Thank
for
you,
being
Joe.
here.
Oh, thank you, Joe. I've loved it. Thank you so much for having me.